Good morning, everyone. It is 10:30 a.m. It is Sunday, and that means it's time for Sunday Club, where every week we work on some Ruby on Rails live streaming. And together we build a little Ruby on Rails app. And what the app does is if you can sign up for an account on the app and you can give it the ID of a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel, hopefully in the future. And it will go off and retrieve the information about those videos, about your channel. And then we're going to build a little mini kind of website for your channel. And we are basically just exploring things. We just explore different things in Rails or how we might approach different features. Kind of mainly looking at it from the approach of like, not necessarily beginners, but certainly learners, and hopefully we all learn things along the way. So welcome if this is your first time, welcome back if you've ever watched one of these streams before. Let's get straight into it. So not a lot of follow-up. Last week we looked at, after a very successful stream using Turbo and Turbo Frames, some of the new functionality that exists in Hotwire, a new set of functionality for Rails. We tried Turbo Streams last week, and I had done, as usual, very little research or prep for that stream, and found that I really needed to have done some prep and looked at what was required for Turbo Stream. So Turbo Frames worked straight out the box. Turbo Streams, going to swing back around to that in the future. Bit more research required for that, fair enough. So once that didn't pan out too well last week, what we looked at was getting our webhooks working from YouTube. So we're able to ingest videos from YouTube. What we want to happen now is when those videos change on YouTube, we want to be told or notified in our application. And so I did do some research this morning. Pretty impressive that I actually got around to doing some prep. It's been busy start to the new year. I haven't had a lot of chance to do anything for the channel, but I did some stuff this morning. And we're going to dive straight into it because it's super interesting what I found. I didn't realize, I kind of had just kind of assumed that YouTube had this stuff ready to go. But let's take a look at some of the stuff I found. So let's dive straight in. So we're not going to dive straight into Rails stuff this morning. We're going to look at the kind of YouTube webhook side of things. And if you're not familiar, webhooks, or YouTube seems to call them push notifications, is the concept of something happening in a third-party system somewhere, but needing to tell your application. And so a webhook is a really common way of doing this, where they will make a request to an endpoint, to a URL on your app, and it will contain a payload, a bunch of information that your app wants to know about. It could be the content of the thing that has changed. It could be information about the changes, but it could be anything depending on what the two systems are. And your app is then able to react to those. So that's what a webhook is. And we've discussed in the past few streams, like things around how you need to be careful of processing those, which is what we were going to look at more of. So I'd never done that with YouTube. Let's dive into it. I'm going to bring up my screen here. So let's start with the documentation, which is what we were looking at. When our Turbo Stream stuff didn't pan out too well, we dove into the documentation stuff here. So YouTube, for some reason, this documentation calls them push notifications, but then does refer to them as webhooks further along via HTTP webhooks. So I think the notification is the content, the payload of the webhook. Fair enough. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger so it's readable on the video. And what we have, I'm just going to check that my audio is coming through because I have been stung in the past. So bear with me while I just break from what I am saying. Yes, okay, you can hear me, cool. Great. Okay, so we followed this documentation, and it was like, great. We use this service called Pubsubhubbub, which is fun to say. And you can register your callback server. So that is the place on your application, the URL where you're willing to receive these notifications. And then you tell it these things. So you tell it the mode that it needs to be in, the callback URL, like what's the URL they're going to send it to. And then the topic URL for this was, it's this part here. And then it was the YouTube channel ID. Great. So we already had our channel ID already, and then it was going to send us these things. And that's the end of the documentation. So I thought this morning, I was like, well, we may as well give this another run. I'll just have a quick Google as to what what was missing from this. We went to Pubsubhubbub and we put in our information. So we were using webhook.site, which is a service that lets you basically it gives you these endpoints without you having to bother building them in your application. And so you can just send them there, and then it gives you a nice little user interface to show you what's being sent there. Really helpful. And we gave it the topic URL and we clicked do it, which is the little button that exists on Pubsubhubbub. And you don't get a success response, but nothing happened. We never got the actual content of our notifications. So this is the web request that's sent from, this is what we saw last week. We saw this web request that's sent from Google. It's like, hey, yep, here you go. So it turns out that you, I just kind of brushed out. I was like, oh, it's not working. This is annoying, and just moved on last week. What I only found from Googling around, I don't know where this documentation actually is that this has a hub_challenge value in the URL. So you can see that. Let me bump the font size up here as well. So this is the request we got when we added the webhook to Pubsubhubbub. So when we said, hey, yeah, I want to subscribe to this, we got this URL back, and it contains hub_challenge, and it's got this value here, 170. That's the hub challenge. So apparently you are to respond to that in the response from that request, but it doesn't mention that in here anywhere as far as I can see. I was like, how was I supposed to know that? And then on the Pubsubhubbub page, it also doesn't say anything about that. So I don't know how, other than this. So I'm assuming this is correct. So the response should be the value hub.challenge, and so that value goes back. Okay, cool. How was I supposed to know that? I don't know. So that then had me Googling around, and I was like, okay, that seems weird that it's just undocumented. So I found this. I'm going to post the links to these. Actually, I'm going to do it now because I sometimes say that and then forget. So I'm going to post some of these links in the video description. Bear with me. I'm going to do it right now because otherwise these links won't be available, and I will move on with my day and forget to add them. So thread about YouTube subscriptions, hub challenge, SO issue. So I'm going to add these links in here. These are going to be in the YouTube video. So if you're watching this on Twitch, they will not be there. So you're going to go to here, go to edit, post these links mentioned during stream. This is like to prevent me not following up afterwards. Cool. So they are there in the description of this video on YouTube. Cool. So this is a GitHub issue that started in going back to March 2018, and this has just been my experience of looking through this. So, hey, according to this, you guys do support it. Most of the phone code I can find around GitHub or tutorials online are wildly outdated. Plus, the configuration is a mixed bag between setting up environment for callback support to working with the web interface. So that then goes on nothing happens for a year, and then people are like, oh yeah, this literally, like, you can get this working, but then people down below are like, this literally doesn't work. This person is scraping XML for the information. So each channel has an XML file with the 10 latest videos. So they're actually polling that XML to get the video information. Okay. Other people then, I'm scrolling through this really quickly, but there is a link in the description if you want to read this. And then other people saying it just straight up doesn't work. So this is really interesting, and what it lends itself to, if I was working on this kind of in day job work stuff, or really looking to do something production wise, if the if the webhook that you are looking to use is unreliable or has issues, you're basically going to have to poll for that information. You're going to have to go and get it and retrieve it from the server somehow via the API and then bring it back yourself. Now, this lends itself to a really interesting quirk with YouTube because they have API quotas. And so I kind of wonder if this is why this type of app doesn't exist more for YouTube. And maybe I'm way off here. So if anyone is watching this and being like, oh no, there's actually like YouTube provide this amazing experience for this, you're just totally missing it because you're an idiot. That is totally reasonable. Please ping me. Contact details are in the description for the video. So let's say that we wanted to poll for this information. So every, hour, 5 minutes, day, whatever it is, we wanted to go and get the information for videos and see what had changed. Well, the issue is that we would have to go and get all of the information that we have to compare it, because we wouldn't know which one to change. If you had a feed that had 10,000 videos, you'd have to go and get all 10,000 because someone might have edited the description on one that was, on the 9,000th video or something, and you wouldn't have been told about that. So you've got to poll all of them and do a comparison on what you have. So the comparison, I don't know, you could write whatever you want. You could make a hash of the data and see if the two hashes have changed, whatever you needed to do. Just check the updated at date or something like that. But because there are quotas on the YouTube API, if you get popular, if your app is then really popular, it's unusable because it would become so expensive. So this is possibly off topic of the YouTube specific application, but this is really worth looking into. If you're looking at working with third-party systems, knowing as much about the webhooks, APIs, rate limiting, quota-based usage, costs for going over those quotas, what happens if you go over? Do you suddenly start getting errors, or do you just start getting billed? What would happen if you didn't have your card on file? All of those things are things you want to look at on a production system before you start. Like as I said at the start of this stream, I haven't done much research into this, so the fact that there's like not a good solution for this, fine, fair enough. But if this was for a client project or your day job work or something like that, you would not want to find this stuff out mid-project because you're like, uh-oh, I had said we could do something. I looked at the docs and kind of it doesn't really work. So quick like prototype apps at the start, like during the discovery part of a project, can be really good if possible. Any kind of budget you can get for discovery at the start of those things will really pay off because you'd find issues like this. So what I want to do is, let's just discuss what those kind of quotas actually look like. So I did bring those up. So in the YouTube docs here, we have this quota usage. So they really interestingly give each different type of API request a unit cost, and a unit is a thing that they've just made up, like you get a certain number of units per API. So to read a read operation, so that's listing channels, videos, playlists, usually costs 1 unit. And so as we looked at in previous streams, we had a request. We're using the gem, so the YT gem. It's like, go and get me all of the videos for this channel. But then what we needed to do, Justin came back and said, oh, hey, that API request is only bringing back truncated versions of the video descriptions. So if you want to check all of them, you'll need to actually go and get each video individually. So, and he also pointed out that each one only brings back 500 videos. So let's say you've got a channel with 1,000 videos, you've got one API request to go and get the list. Then for each one, you've potentially got an API request to go and read it and compare it. That's 501 requests. And then because you've got 1,000 videos, you've got to do that twice. So you've got 1,002 requests to do nothing, to basically check your existing one. And all you get here as your quota is 10,000 units a day. So that's massive if you were only building an app for one channel. Like if we were just doing an app around the Sunday Club channel, the channel you're watching, that's loads, 10,000 in a day. If you want to build an app that you want to have hundreds of channels and you want to go and grab them all and each one has got thousands of videos, or you want the public to turn up and add more, that's not enough. And so you might bump into issues there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe YouTube do provide a better solution to this. There's like a public feed that I've not found that's free, but I can't imagine so because Google don't give stuff away that much. And plus you then want the webhooks around it as well. So that is an issue. The other thing you could do is ask each person signing up to give you an API key as well. But I mean, consumers aren't going to do that. That's like bonkers technical for like a normal person. But maybe if you were building a developer tool, you could be like, hey, give me your YouTube API, but also give me your API key. And then we'll have 10,000 units per channel, but you have to give me the API key as well. Maybe you can... It's not per key either, it's per account. So yeah, you couldn't even have multiple accounts because they have to have like billing data and stuff. So maybe there's a way around this. I don't know. I haven't delved any deeper, but just to be aware that this is all stuff that's really useful to look at up front if you're using third-party services. Again, if you're building a Twitter app, Facebook, all these things, all those APIs come with their own restrictions as to how you can use them. I hope this is useful, by the way. If ping me if this is helpful for people who are considering building apps on third parties. Right, all of that being said, let's get this working. let's do what this random static Stack Overflow post told us to do. And someone had an example. They had some example code in here of how they got their challenge working. So we can look at that. So we're going to use ngrok, and they are literally returning. They're going to get the challenge value and then return it back. So let's do that. So we're going to see if we can get this webhook up and running. Maybe we can use it, maybe we can't, but let's see what we can do. I also couldn't work out, while I'm on that note, of how to create these programmatically. Like if we had this and then we wanted to create one for each channel, I'm not actually sure how we would do that via the API either. I couldn't find that. It's almost like YouTube don't want you to take web traffic from them and send it somewhere else. Who would have thought that? What they do provide on here, let's start with our starting place, is this little diagnostics tool. So we can copy and paste the URLs from here into the diagnostic. And I think what we're looking for when we get this is we get unverified as the state. So I think what we're going to do with this challenge hub response is get that verified, and then I think it may or may not work. So that's cool. So let's do that. So we can go back. So instead of using webhook.site, we're going to use a service called ngrok. So if you haven't come across this, webhook.site is really helpful, but is there's people in the comments. You have to enable the YouTube data for each project. So Justin's responding on the, so you can create multiple projects, and in each project you can request a new API key. So is can you do that programmatically, Justin? Sorry to jump. Good morning, by the way. Hello, people watching along. Can you create those projects programmatically? Like, could you, as someone came in and added a YouTube channel, could you fire off and create a new project and then fire a new API key, bring that back and store it? Because you would want to automate that process because you don't want to have to sign up. Justin then said you have to enable the YouTube data API for each project. Oh, is that manual? Yeah, because this is like, there's often like ways to work around those quotas if you're willing to do it. But complete pain in the butt if you're trying to do it programmatically. But then, hey, it's their data. Like if they want to charge you for it, like I get it. I mean, it's what you get for being the, incumbent massive provider or whatever. Okay. Let's go and, okay. So we were taking a look at ngrok. So webhook.site is one example. There are a couple of others. If you Google around for like webhook, web-based webhook service or something like that, And they're really good because they basically just give you a visual, quick way of looking at everything that's coming through from whatever third-party service you're trying to receive stuff from. So you get all these headers and a cool little thing, and they just list them down here. Most of them have this upgrade model where you can do you pay more money and get extra services. So all of these services here, for example, are you can. Okay, so I'm just going to interrupt. So I'm just going to carry this on conversation with Justin because I think it's interesting. But it's against the policy. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So Justin's saying, I don't think you can make the projects programmatically, but it's against the policy of Google. You have a total of 20 projects. Okay, so that's like a temporary workaround kind of thing. You can request a larger quota from Google without paying. Yeah, so I did see that on there. I'm assuming, yeah. So you just have to have your app audited, but I'm assuming they audit it for like, do we want to allow you to do this? The mercurial nature of things like that, and Google pulling things would make me very nervous. This is a really good example project for us because we're bumping into all these weird edge cases and everything. If you are looking at building an app that you wish to charge money for or something, and you are building it on a third-party API, the risk of that third-party API changing its rules or its regulations or its auditing is something you have to think about. And it's fine, like loads of people do it and it's amazing. But that is like a risk, technical risk and business risk. And it's like, apps being on the App Store or Google Play Store. There are loads of like risks that you take. And then often if you are on projects where you're asked to vet vendors or vet platforms for a client or something like that, like you'll actually have to write those risks up because they then need to be factored into like are we going to do this? Are we not going to do this? So you're looking at the risks of, how long has the company existed? Is it like a startup? Like that's something you might want to consider as a, like right at the start of a project. You're like, is this a startup? Are they funded? How long for? Because if we build our cool new thing on their cool new thing, but they get wiped out or, they get bought by Google and take it away. What would we do if that API went away? So these are all things that you will, if you're building the app yourself, you want to take into consideration. And then if you move into larger organizations or end up working for clients, these are things that you will either be asked to or should be. I don't know, it should be, but I would highly recommend raising right at the start of a project. It's like, hey, we're building this project on this random thing, or we're going to have to get this audited by Google. Odds are, Google are going to have some audit process where they're like, great, show us what you've got. So that process becomes, okay, well, we have to build this first and then go and get it audited. So we're putting all the risk in, and if Google's saying no, we're screwed. Or they say yes, but they give us a different limit, or those types of things. So I'm hoping this, again, is useful, just context from stuff that I've bumped into as part of like vendor selection processes, like third-party API, like should we build this, should we build it ourselves? All of those types of things. Like they're always interesting. They're all just huge sets of trade-offs. Cool. Thank you, Justin. I think that's super worthwhile. I know I'm drifting off of these webhook things, but I think that is super worthwhile for people to, because I'm just going to carry on, because you don't bump into them when you're a learner, because everyone's just like, oh yeah, you just do this thing, and all the tutorials like, oh yeah, you just use this thing. And you're like, oh cool, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea for an app. And then it's only when you've built everything that you're like, oh, I'm being screwed over by some massive company. Or the startup that I've been using has disappeared. Okay, cool. So we've got webhook.site. This is a visual way to get these webhooks back and see all the cool stuff. And ngrok, which I can move over here, is a command line tool. I imagine there are loads of them. I just use ngrok because it works, where you can get a URL, and it's usually ngrok.io, and it will tunnel that URL to your development environment. Super helpful, and works really well, really reliably. They also have a pricing paid model upgrade thing, where when you use the free version, you get like temporary URLs. You don't get the same one every time, and there are like other things that it can't do. If you pay, you get I think you can have consistent URLs. You get loads of fancy features. So I've used it. It's always been useful for me. I've used some of these web-based ones as well, but we're going to use ngrok today, and we're going to do that so that we can funnel it through to our own development environment and return the token that Pubsubhubbub is expecting to get. So let's see what that looks like. Let's go here, and so I've already got ngrok installed. I'm not going to run through that process. You can go through their docs. You can just grab the little file down, and we can say ngrok, and you say what type of connection, HTTP. It'll give you both HTTP and HTTPS, and then you tell it what port number you would like to get that traffic to. So what you're saying there is, hey ngrok, please set up listeners for HTTP traffic. And when you receive that HTTP traffic, please receive it and then bring it through to my machine, this machine that's running on, and I want you to bring it through on port 3000, which for us will be the Rails default build. That's what's happening there, and they should appear as if by magic. So if I run that command, you'll see what we get. Bump the font size up, hopefully, and make it a bit more readable. And so you can see what we've got here is we have a 2-hour session. Again, if you get their paid model, you'll get more time or whatever it is. The server that we're connected to is in the States. Oh, they actually have a web interface now. That's cool. I don't know. That's super cool. And here is the URL. So this URL here, if we go there, is basically going to route all of the traffic to our local development environment. Super helpful. So if you wondered how this stuff works, this is a really common tool to do for this. So great. So what we can do is we could say, right, well, actually what we're going to do is instead of pointing our Pubsubhubbub to webhook.site, we can actually take that out. Well, we'll do the HTTPS one because so it's nice. So we could send it there. That will come through to our local environment. So again, thinking in terms of like your Rails request and response cycle, where are we sending it if we send it straight to that URL? Well, we're just sending it to the root. Like it's not going to go anywhere. Like root ROOT. We need to give it somewhere to go. So let's go do that. We're gonna build a little temporary one just to show it how this stuff works. So let's go and build a quick controller to do this. So you would usually have controllers for your webhooks being processed directly on your app anyway. So we're just going to do a quick one for, well, let's add a route for it first. So let's define where we're going to send this. So we could say, I've already forgotten what it was called. Pubsubhubbub. Pubsubhubbub. That'll do. I don't really care. And then that can go to... Yeah, I'm just going to build this one out as a quick test dummy one. The fact that I'm not sure how to do these programmatically, like create more webhooks, like... I'm not really sure what that means. How do people do that on YouTube? Like YouTube services? Do they just poll? Do they set up loads of these? Is there like, must be something I'm just not seeing. Yeah. Like Pubsubhubbub API? Get started with Pubsubhubbub. That's from 2009. Do people just poll API to poll YouTube? Is that? Web scale decentralized password. Is it in here? Oh, okay, cool. What's this? Okay. Protocol specification. Okay, cool. Maybe there's something in here. Publisher. Can we just post to the /subscribe and get the 204 back? Right, is this just a tool where we're able to just post to these? Right, okay, hang on a second. So can we just post these params to this URL and get a 204 back? Okay, maybe that works, okay. So we could do it that way. That isn't documented anywhere, so I'm just guessing that that's what's happening here, that this form just posts to that and these are just params. I have no idea if there's anything like specifically preventing us from doing that. Okay. And then we don't know if it works either because there was loads of people saying it didn't in that in that GitHub thing. Okay, this is good exploring. Right, let's go build a quick example one. So we'll just do YouTube webhooks controller, and then this would be the what are we doing there? We're creating one, I guess. You wouldn't normally. What request is that? It's just a GET request, isn't it? Yeah. Or we could actually call it. We could call it. Oh, we could call it post. We could do what the like MailChimp used to do and do that. So are we creating a webhook then? No, we're verifying it, I guess. YouTube webhook. Verifications controller? Are we creating a webhook verification? I don't know. I haven't really drawn this out. I usually draw what I'm trying to do on a bit of paper, but we'll figure that out. I also forgot to look up the syntax for that, so I'm assuming that that is right. So that would then be /that. And it would go there. Cool. So I think if we now do that, that will then break. But I think if we do this, ngrok will see something. Cool. Okay, so we got a bad gateway. Great. Is that coming from our server? Do we have a server running? So let's get a server running that can respond to that, which should be, hey, there's nothing here. So we're going to CD Sunday Club, just make this font a bit bigger. So we now want to start our server so that we have something at port 3000 here for this to respond to. So this is coming in and being like, nope, but we've got something through at that URL. So when our server comes up, cool. Just refreshing this work, or do we have to? 403 forbidden. So did we add in one of those devise canny things that has to do stuff at the application controller level? Does that include Pundit? Oh well. Let's just go and build that out, and then I'll Google the syntax for this just to check it's pointing to the same right thing. So let's build a YouTube webhook verifications controller. That's YouTube. Webhook verifications controller. And I think I set it as create, which I'm not sure is the right one, but we don't need to worry about that too much right now. get that, and that's set to YouTube webhook verifications create. So we can go and look at this Rails info routes, YouTube. Cool. So /pubsubhubbub/post goes to YouTube webhook verifications create. So that should get in there. Okay, cool. So we had a 403 coming through. Did we add anything that's doing that user authentication by default? I thought we might have only added that in our control panel base. Authenticate user. Okay, well, let's see what happens now. We really have, oh, let's put something in and say, we are in the controller. So this is a puts just so that we can visualize something in our terminal output. And we want to say this again. And then go and see what this is doing. Are we getting anything through here? So localhost 3000. What am I missing? If we go to, let's just hit it manually. Wherever that is, so we can go to here. Oh, blocked hosts. Okay. Okay. Is this a new Rails security thing? I haven't had to add that before in the past. This is, I'll just bump the font size up again. So we are being blocked there because it is a blocked host. So add the following to your environment configuration. So, okay, what I want to do is put all ngrok ones. So Rails blocked hosts, ngrok. There we go. Upgraded to Rails 6. Okay, so it's a Rails 6 thing by the looks of it. Blocked host is a new feature of Rails 6. Look at this. We're learning new stuff all the time. You can add this pattern to your config environments development and have no worries of that in case of dynamic URLs. Config users. Also for ngrok users, just replace C9 users by ngrok. Okay, let's just blindly trust this person with their regex skills and shove this in development.rb. Thank you, random person on the internet, for doing that for us. Just stick this at the bottom. And we wanted to swap this for ngrok. And I'm assuming because that's in config, we need to restart our server. Cool. And now if we try this again. Oh, yeah, exciting. Okay, so that's cool. A quick note of ngrok usage that you might bump into is if you have your asset pre-compilation turned off in development and you're doing loads of stuff with loads of individual files, there's some sort of limit on the number of, on the free version of ngrok. Like it's the number of individual requests it will pass through per second or minute. There's some sort of limit there. So if you bump into that, you can, like, they would normally be, I think it will do cached ones. I think it will let through. So I think if you can like make the first request, it'll do most of them and then wait the time limit, it'll go through. You can pay, like if you've got client work or day job stuff, that'll pay for that for you. Or you can wait it out, or you can like pre-compile, you like make the change that doesn't have all the individual files. So you could have those assets down as one request. So you're more like your production environment. But just be aware of it. Okay, so let's try and do this request again, which is the one from Pubsubhubbub. And we're going to, oh, look at this. So we've got a very noisy puts values that we put in, or put s, and letting us know we're there. And what it gives us wonderfully is the params that we got through from Pubsubhubbub. So there's our hub.topic, and this is the one we care about, hub.challenge. Cool. So what we can do, if you remember, there was someone in the GitHub issue who had basically said, like, if it's there, just return it. I don't really know, what's that, Python? So does that return have a specific status? Is that like okay, I guess, rather than created or anything like that? Because this one is specifying 204. And I'm assuming when you go into that, if you don't hit this, don't know. Let's just return it anyway, because we don't really care too much. So in here, we could do the same thing. We could say if, oh, no, grabbed completely the wrong thing. So we don't need to... I don't know, ours wouldn't be return. We would just do... Oh, is the simple one render where you just put head? No, head is no... head has no body. Rails controller inline response. Let's do these two. Using render, redirect to render, edit. Can you just put a one-liner in? Using render within line. Render plain, okay. Okay, can we just do that? And put that as the value? Rendering pure text is most useful when responding to web service that is expecting other than proper HTML. By default, if you use the plain option, the text is rendered without using the current layout. Okay. I actually don't know what this is trying to get back. I've literally just based that solely on the rando in the in the GitHub thing in Python. So I don't know if that'll work. Okay, let's see what that does, I guess. Refresh this again to send it again, and something happened there. Rendering text template. Oh, I should have actually looked to see. Oh, here we go. So previously, that was us loading the full page, so we can ignore those ones. Then we sent a request there and we responded with 204 no content. That was just our puts values spitting out, but we didn't send anything back. And here we are returning with a 200 okay, but I don't know what that had in it. But I'm guessing we can go back now and do this. It's still unverified. Okay, so challenge mismatch at 0906. So if we do that, do you then just go back and do the diagnostic? Oh, I've got the wrong callback URL. Sorry. The callback URL is this one. And then that one is there, sorry. Okay, so is this one now verified? Oh, great. Okay, amazing. So you can see this. Let me bump the font size up again. So Sorry, that was, it doesn't give you a diagnose button with the same params. You have to keep them up to date. So I those two had gone out of sync. So I was asking about the webhook.site one when calling the diagnostic, which makes no sense. So I updated that one, the URL here to match the URL here. And then when we do that diagnosis, you then get this state to verified. So that means that we should now be receiving webhooks here when we get our things. Oh, so it wasn't the verification controller. It was this. The endpoint that you verify is the same endpoint to which the data will be sent, right? Okay, so you wouldn't have a verifications controller. You would have the actual webhook controller. It would just need to have a before action that checked for the verification and dealt with it if there was one. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So can we just spit out what they send us then? So can we just do let's just do more visual stuff. So let's just see if this works now. And we just want the params, I guess, to come out. Okay, so now we've got a webhook that's going to fire based on changes to this channel, which is the Sunday Club channel. It's going to call back to here, and it is going to tell us whether there have been requests. Last item delivered, content received, and content delivered. And should we send back a submission will result in a 201 this browser? Looks like a no up. Okay, what should we send back to say we've got it? Do they not care? They don't process the request response. The response status. All right, let's just send it and see if it spits something out. Okay, so I think I have to go and change something now actually on the channel. So I'm going to do that in the other browser. Okay, so we can go into here, go into the little studio thing. This is just on the other screen for a second, so bear with me. And we can just change, I think we can change anything. So I can add in, wait, can I do it in this stream that we're doing now? Let's see if that does anything. So I'm going to add a link to the quota usage page from YouTube to this description. Let's see if we get anything through, so we can watch here to see if anything happens. So I'll add a link in there, and then I'm saving that. I don't know if this will happen in how quickly or how in real time or anything like that. I've already forgotten the last one. Is that one already there? Oh my God, it's totally just happened. 4F1 not found. Oh my God, how exciting. So then in here, we should have, we're in the controller. So that's all of that stuff. That's the homepage one. Oh, it actually came as a post. Oh, okay. It came as a post. Cannot render console from 125.255 allowed networks. Okay, so okay, why is it not just spitting out? Cannot render console from that allowed networks. Cannot render console from with ngrok. Is that another security thing? How to disable cannot render console from. Web console whitelisted ops rather than development environment. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm going to do this real quick just to see if that is something similar. So let's do that and do this in here, and then just restart the server. Okay, so save that. Go through. But I don't think, I guess we can't request that change to come through again. I guess we just have to go and change something again. So I can just remove that line and hit save again. So it was like a few seconds before it arrived. So that 404 not found was the last one we had. Because all we want it to do is spit out the params coming through. So I'm not sure why it's not able to do that. Okay, so is it 404 not found? Has it done the same thing? Oh, it's because we're only, hang on a second. So we only had get here. So it's a routing error and then, oh, okay. So there was a routing error. And then what is that one for? The web one? Is it that is that the like thing that you see normally in the browser would normally run on in ngrok? Is that what's happening there? Okay. So we want to change this one to match, is it? Oh God. Rails routing. Rest functions get, is it match? How to construct your own routes either using preferred or the match method. First matching route is Sorry, I'm just trying to remember the syntax for this. Ah, here we go. Match to via. Okay, cool. And it was something along some lines, so we can say match that to via get post. So sorry, just to clarify what's happening there. Sorry, I just wanted to get that fixed because I never remember those things. I was impressed by those developers who just have all of that stuff like in there. I'm like syntax perfect every time. I never remember anything like that. Okay, so when we were doing the setting up the webhook, it was making a GET request to that endpoint to do the verification. But when we made the change on the YouTube video and have it actually send a payload through, it was coming through as a post request. And what I had done is set the original route up using the using GET as the first word. And that means please match this route in the app only to GET requests. So when we then sent a post through, it was like, hey, nope, don't know what to do with that. And then the error message confused me because I thought it was because we were using ngrok, but that was a whole other thing. So what we need to do is change that endpoint to be like, yep, I am willing to accept GET requests and post requests as well, which hopefully we have done, I think. So we now again still can't, I don't think we have to turn the server off and on, but I'm going to do that anyway because I removed that thing there as well. Okay, so I think I have to make yet another change to the video. So we're going to watch this. Still going to make the font size bigger. I'm hoping this is readable. Let's go and make another change. So we've got to make this happen. I'm actually changing the video that I'm streaming right now. So it's actually pretty cool that it doesn't have to be finished. So I can add that line break back in. Some exciting changes. Cool. And then we had 404 not found. And then do we get anything different here? We're just all sitting, staring. Oh my God, the tension. There we go. Great. Unprocessable entity. Cool. So have we got stuff? Ah, amazing. Okay, great. So it got a post request, but couldn't verify the CSRF token authenticity, which we don't want to do because it's a webhook request. I should have thought about some of this stuff through in advance, but hey, we're learning. We're going to just smash through this, exploring. So we want to turn that. So CSRF is the cross-site request forgery tools that are built into Rails. So your request comes through and has a little when a request is generated by Rails, it'll add a little token, a little specific value that it generates. And what it does is when that value is then posted to the application, it compares it and says, "Hey, are you really the request did you really come from this application?" And if it checks out, it's like, "Yep, you're all good." And if it can't check it because the request didn't come from the right place, usually your own site, then it's like, no way. And that is turned on by default. But what we can do is turn it off per action, I think. So we just want to turn that off and say, yeah, we don't really care about that. We're willing to accept post requests from this third party. Normally you wouldn't turn it off site-wide or anything like that because it's an important security issue. But here we're like, oh, we don't really care. These are post requests from this random webhook controller. We're going to be so limited in what we're allowed to going to do with that data, and we're going to put in other mitigations around like making sure that we trust those things. For webhooks, you would often get some sort of verification process. So what could you do? So for webhooks, the verification could be built into the webhook itself. So Stripe has a token they pass through, and so you then can basically verify it. I think you put a secret at both ends and you can verify it that way. You could also do something more basic where you take the webhook in, store it, and like just basically mark it as fine, we've received this, but actually don't act on the payload of the webhook. You go and retrieve the thing you need from the third-party service. So that way, even if you had someone able to tell you to do stuff, you're not actually acting on anything they're telling you. You actually have to go and get that. Maybe you go and get the actual real payload from the webhook, or you go and get the resource or whatever it is. Those are different techniques. You can have you could have something simple like HTTP basic auth in front of your webhook endpoint, so that like the URL itself has the you can't get there unless you know a username and password that's required. You can do a combination of multiple of these things, and there are more as well. Often if a webhook has, like in Ruby or in Rails, often if they have like a third-party gem that's officially given to you, it might have that stuff to help you built in. So that might be helpful. But check. This is another thing when we were talking earlier on about like before you build a tool based on a third-party API, go and do your due diligence. Again, when you're implementing a webhook, go and check what the security measures are. You don't want to have like a really successful app, and then you accidentally, someone comes across your one of the endpoints through which you receive information, and then they can just start sending you spoofed webhooks, maybe with URLs in that you suddenly start going and acting on, or something like that. Like it's an inbound point where you don't want to be acting on it without strict verification. So bear that in mind. Cool. So we're going to turn this off, which I cannot remember how to do. So we're going to do Rails disable CSRF for action. Look at that. Someone's doing it. Looking for a more recent one. Don't want to disable it site-wide. I'm hoping there's just a... If it fails to, I had to add these lines in controller. I had an issue. Skip before action verify. Is it not like a one? Skip after action, verify authorized. Is there nothing in the official, like, here? Sorry, I haven't got these font sizes up. You can disable forgery protection on controller by skipping the verification before. Okay, can I just do that one? So we can check that in here. This is super messy, by the way. Don't, you know, this is just, and we're going to do that there. Only create. Cool. So hopefully, let's give this another try. So we're getting a little bit further each time. Let's move this up again, and then we're going to make a change again on our video. Cool. And then save that. And so here we've got 3 unprocessable entities, and then when the one above it appears, that will be our webhook being processed. Okay, amazing. So now we've got a 204 no content, which looks promising. It's not an error. So now we can go over here and look at what we have. No template found, rendering header, no content. Okay, so what was in the body of that request? Okay, can we just do a pry in there? Oh no, now we have to wait again. How do you debug this? Like, there must be a better way of getting these back. Am I missing something, or does the YouTube developer experience not fill you with a kind of like joy? Sometimes, like if you work on like, I quite like the Stripe one, but some developer experiences are really lovely. Like docs where you just put the API key in and then you can just press the button every time and it just like sends you requests and does super helpful stuff like that. Or I was working on a vendor selection process at one point, and it came with a Postman collection. So Postman is an app that will send the requests and do that request and response like as a separate app. And they had all of that, and it had the documentation and everything. Like, so you downloaded this little Postman pack, and so you load it up in Postman, and it had all of the API with all of the things. So you then just pop in your API key, and it was like, hey, here's an interactive version of the API with your sandbox, test key in it, and you could just totally just like mess around in there. Oh, so good. I know that wouldn't have worked for webhooks necessarily. But like Stripe's webhook testing stuff is really great. Like a visual log of each webhook, when it was last received, what got sent, what came back. Do you want to retry it? Oh, so good. Like this one, I don't think there's any UI for this webhook. It's just a black box, and I'm just changing a video to get it back. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally missing something. Maybe there's a wonderful YouTube developer experience that I'm not privy to. Doesn't feel like it though. Okay, let's this is just me moaning at this point, so let's try another one. I'm just putting a pry in there. Just let's go and see what this request has got in it. Right, so I've made another change is saved, and we think that'll come through again, and hopefully we can in here then. We can then hopefully spell whoa, what is happening? Usual nonsense. So where, I can never remember how to actually get the stuff I'm looking for. So what we want, oh, I've got too much here. just want the payload from that record. Holy crap, I forgot how much is in here. Okay. Wow. Tell me. Okay. Oh no, I've left that going on too. Okay, let's leave that going while I Google. Rails prior request body. Response dot body. It's still going. Oh shit. Yeah, why am I not just... Okay, I've broken my... Okay, can I get out of that? Okay. So that... Okay, that's not what I think it is it? Okay, there we go, cool. Okay, so this is the same thing. Why can't I not just get request dot body out? I am definitely missing something here. I am definitely missing something here. Oh, because it's the but the response will be on the way back. So this is the request in. Yeah, I want the request body, not the response body. Yeah, I want the request body. Rest is the same everywhere in the controller, so it doesn't make a binding product. So what do I want from the request? Oh. Is this because it's an atom thing? Is that why it's not coming through as that? Okay. Okay, I don't need the prior. So Rails request body. Getting a request dot body. I need to set the following application. Right, okay, so ours won't be application JSON, will it? It would be application atom or whatever atom is. Request.raw post. Here we go. Is that what I'm looking for? Ah, bingo. Oh, how exciting. Okay, yeah, this is is this the one that's changed? What's the actual YouTube webhooks? That's this one. Yes, exciting. But it doesn't have the actual change in it, does it? It just has the fact that it has changed. So, channel name. Notification format shown below. Note that you can use actually video ID element to identify the video. You can also use the channel ID element to identify the channel that owns the video. Ah, of course. Right. Okay. So this is... Okay, great. So that was available to us in... I've lost my prior session. Request.raw post. And I think in request dot, what else can we, can I say Rails request type? Get content type of request. Request.content type. See, I bet some people just have all of those memorized. Like I have to Google that. I bet if I do this in 2 days, I'll have to still Google that. Right, application atom XML. Okay. To process that. Okay, so we can just see if Rails has a built-in handler thingy for that. So we're getting these back as atom rather than just a simple JSON. Sorry, atom feed, but this will be to publish on it rather than process. Format.atom. Yeah, that's on the way out. There's an atom feed helper. Wow, cool. Atom feed underscore do. Where is it actually enabling? Oh, can I do atom feed underscore request? Can I do this? No, that was too good. Actually, is this? You need to put the helper in the controller, maybe. Or is that something for the view helper? Okay. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter too much. In your job, you controller add an action which creates the quick experiments for the post request and save them, or whatever you need to do with it. Yeah, so oh wait, have I totally forgotten to is it because I've forgotten to permit the params for that? Would they normally be in there? Or is it because it's an atom feed that it's not sure? Yeah, I just want to do this real quick just to let that through. Can I just do params permit? I still need to know the... Yeah, but that would still... Yeah, that... They're not params on the request. That's the body of the request. Yeah, okay, I don't think that's the case because it doesn't matter whether they've been requested or not. I would still get my raw list of params. Okay, no, I don't think that's it. Okay, cool. So it doesn't really matter. I can just pause. So I want... I can pause that. Into Rails. Okay, what about this? I'm just grabbing code now at this point. Ah, amazing. Okay, cool. So you can process it as HTML, as XML, sorry. Man, I haven't done anything XML for a while. Okay, right. Sorry about that. That took a bit around the houses. I wasn't quite sure how to get there. So request.body.read works, but request.body didn't get me what I wanted. Ah, so I need the .read because it's a string IO. See, this is why people who memorize those APIs are so good because they would totally have known that off the top of their head. I should really have Googled string.io. Fine, and then to work on it, you can do that. And now we could do... guess we need the video ID out of that. So is the whole thing wrapped in feed? Right, but that was my point. I just want to parse the... Ooh, we could turn this... It doesn't really matter by that point. You've still got it. Feed equals, and then feed.entries.do... Oh, okay, so there's actually... If you use the gem, you can then turn that... Parse that as the feed, and then loop over the feed. Other than this way, we would have to go and... What are these strings? I think would that work? And then in there you would have, trying to do it by eye because it's going to now entry is the next one down. Entry. And then in that, well, we could just do dig. I think. Entry. Video ID? Okay, so in here, I can grab this. This is super rough and ready, but we'll get the gist. Okay, so in here, what we've ended up with, in a very long way around, I hope this is making some sense, by the way. I've been trying to narrate as I'm going along, but what we were trying to do is get the thing that has changed, get the value that we care about from this webhook. So now that YouTube is telling us when something has changed, this is how we're able to retrieve it. Let me just close these ones here. And close this one as well and bump this up. So basically, let's just clean this up as well. We'll do a recap. I think we're pretty much at time anyway. Cool. So, yeah, this has been really interesting, but sucked as a developer experience for these YouTube webhook things. Okay. So let's run through what we did. We send a request off to the Pubsubhubbub thing, and it has the callback URL and the topic to which we want to subscribe. We get a request back from that, which will have this hub.challenge, and that is the first request that says, hey, are you ready to receive this? And if we have that value, we render that value back and say, yes, that's all it's looking for. We just say, yep, there you go. That's the challenge. And then that marks the endpoint as verified. And so it's like, yes, I will now send you these requests and I will send them to you for a few days, like from the 31st to the 5th. For some reason, like not even a week. Okay, there's some period of days that you'll receive them for. Wonder if that's consistent. I would assume so. Okay. We would then want to store that somewhere, because if we need to generate these programmatically, that's only going to give us 5 days of updates. We're going to need to refresh that. So we would then want to store this current subscription so that we knew we had to update it. So we had to go and get a new subscription for this channel later. Fine. So we would then... That's saying 0 delivery requests. Oh, maybe that takes a while to get updated because we have had deliveries. Yeah, it says here we've received deliveries. Okay. Oh, per second. Right, the average is 0 per second. Yeah, okay, sure. So we would want to store that so that we knew we could refresh it. Fine, great. And we could unsubscribe from it. Okay, cool. I'm guessing we just send a delete request rather than a post to the end. I don't know. That all worked. So we then verified that. That was great. When an event then happens that this webhook fires for, so that is adding a new video or editing a video's title or description, we then get an atom, a webhook comes in with an atom payload, and we don't get like the params, and we just get a post request. That post request has the payload, and then we then have a choice how we process that payload. So we could install the atom gem that people were talking about, which would like, we could tell it this feed and then we could loop over it or something. What I've done here is really, we've basically said, well, this is XML. So just go and read it as XML from request.body.read. And if you remember, it's not request.body because it's a string IO rather than just a string. So that's why we needed the .read on the end. And that then converts this to a hash. We could do other stuff with it. We could do it to JSON or whatever. Hash has a method called dig, which will let us kind of go and get nested bits of data. And within the feed enclosure, we then had the entry enclosure, and then we had the video key that we cared about. And what we would then do here is act upon this. So I would probably save that somewhere as an action to go and do, like, we could kick off a background job, but we'd probably want to save it as the actual, I would probably save the webhook payload. So we knew what we had got, in case we wanted to maybe only save it for a period of time or something, but just so we knew on it. We then want to have a background job that acts upon that payload. So we could either set the background job here, or we could mark we could store the payload and mark it as unprocessed or something like that. Then have a job that comes in and processes those. And what we then need to do is, because we haven't been given the details of what has changed, we need to go and act upon it ourselves. So I'm guessing if it's a video ID that we don't yet have in our system, we know that it's a new one, or we would assume that it's a new one, and we would go and retrieve it and bring that back over. If it is one we already have, we would then need to go and get it from the API. So go like we already do in our job. We have a YouTube thing here. It goes and gets videos. It gets the channel at the moment, but it could just go and get a video like this, and it could update our end. And what we were talking about was this idea of we could store, we already have the video stored at our end. What we could do is store a new version of it, either in a different table or alongside it, or give them version numbers, or mark one as like the current production one or something like that. And so this brings us all the way back to the API limits that we were talking about earlier, which is, even though you're getting the webhook back, you're not getting something you can just store and use. You still have to go and spend your API credit on going and retrieving the value that you have been sent. You've been sent the ID value. You still have to go and retrieve that to work out what the hell you want to do with it. So with some webhooks, there's enough actionable information, and if you trust that it's secure and safe, you can actually act upon the webhook itself, act upon that payload. You then don't need to go back to the third-party service to do stuff, whatever you might need to do. So let's say it was on a payment provider, and it was like you'd made like on Stripe, if you make a payment, they're not called payment intent, is they're called these days. So if you have a payment intent and it's like all ready to go, and you get the confirmation of that payment intent, like after all of the SCA stuff has happened, all of the user verification has happened, you get the confirmation back that it's all good. Like you're good at that point. Like you with that webhook, you can just process the stuff. You know that Stripe has taken the money and all of the financial stuff has happened. You're just updating things on your end. So you're going to mark it as complete, send an email to the user, do whatever you're going to do. You can go back to the third party, but you don't have to. Whereas in this case, we're going to spend our API credits no matter what when that comes back. But we have a working version, and what we could do is we could look at building out like I don't know, this just doesn't seem any fun to have to maintain such an infrastructure around these webhooks. Like we have to maintain these, because we could spend ages like building out the little thing to like go go and look at the expiration time and then refresh it and sort of that. That sounds really boring. Like, I don't really want to do that. let's skip over that and just assume this is kind of going to work, because we know we could build that. And maybe for now we just go and get the video data as and when we need it. Because I think there's enough in here for people to look at and be like, right, okay, well, I can kind of get the gist, and they can ask any questions in the in GitHub. There we have a little discussions tab. If you've got any questions, just chuck stuff on there, or feel free to reach out. The contact details are in the YouTube video description. So I think that kind of rounds us off for today. I think that I've learned a bunch of stuff that I didn't know, and have found working with YouTube really interesting and not as friendly as I had hoped it would be. I don't know what to make of that. So yeah, that is it. We'll come back next week. I'll have a think about what we want to do. I kind of, now that we've got those webhooks firing, we can look at that versioning stuff. Although if I don't build out that infrastructure, it might be less useful, but we can take a look at some of the gems that I've used for that in the past. Oh, hello, we've got stuff in the chat. So Justin is asking, if I understand correctly, this is to keep the video information that you have up to date, kind of like an RSS feed of what's new that's happening on the channel. Yeah, so because we've got this one-time import at the moment, we're basically creating another set of data. So if that data changes on YouTube, we won't know. So we could have, let's say we've gone to collect the first 5 videos, and we want to know if the author has gone back and updated loads of cool titles and descriptions on YouTube that then wouldn't be reflected on the little kind of website thing we were making for them. Likewise, we want to know when they've added new videos as well. So we want that to come through. So it's both keeping the video information you have up to date and also being told when new ones are being added, so that we don't have to keep going and polling and asking the YouTube channel, hey, do you have any new videos? Or requiring the user to come into the app and add them manually. We could totally do both of those things. Like we could write a poller that goes and just checks regularly to see if we want to add a video. Some systems you may work with, definitely legacy ones, might not have any mechanism to bring you the data. They might not have a webhook that they can send you or any notification system at all. So you have to poll. And I've certainly worked on systems, not recently, but back in the day, where you have to go and screen scrape. You have to basically fake being a user and go and use that system to find out whether there is anything new. So webhooks are a great thing to have, and especially if you trust them and all of those things that we talked about. But if you don't have it, how are you going to keep the two sets of data in sync? Are you going to poll for the data? Are you going to ask the user to do something? Are you, you have nothing but options, but this is a kind of good example. I think, I don't know, maybe we could do something with the Stripe button just to show the different world of developer experience that the Stripe one is. Like, I'm not saying it's like the best thing since sliced bread or whatever, but like, it's so, the tooling around it is so great. Like their visibility on what you're getting, and the webhooks are persistent. So you just say, hey, set this up. You say, these are the types of things I want to receive back. And then you don't have to touch it, basically. You also get different testing and production keys. So they have an infrastructure that helps you. Whereas with this one, we have to build all of that ourselves. So renewing our subscriptions, having different subscriptions for production, testing, staging. These are all things just rolling off the top of my head, but they're all things we would have to roll our own. Whereas if you're using a third party that has all that stuff to keep and to go back to Justin's comment, he said video information. I'm trying to abstract this out to be like, we happen to be storing videos, but whatever app you're building with a third party, you're going to deal with all of these things. And you just don't want to be building scrapers to go and get it, because it's painful supporting that type of thing. Sometimes you can't avoid it on legacy systems. You got to do it. Yeah. All right, so we've covered a bunch of stuff. If you have any other questions or if you just want to talk about stuff, anything like that, like I said, the contact details are in the YouTube channel description, and there's links to Twitter and stuff, and there's a discussion tab in YouTube, in GitHub, in the repo. I hope everyone has an amazing week and has fun diving into webhooks for third-party services and playing around with things like ngrok and webhook.site. And I will see you next week. We'll have a think about what to take a look at, and we will go and explore something else. And eventually we are going to come back and finish that turbo streams thing. Life's a bit busy at the moment, so I'm not getting any time between these streams, but I'm super interested in the action cable stuff that I have never looked at before, and I'm super interested in getting that turbo stream stuff working. I don't think it's rocket science. I just think that I hadn't done the prep to get it working, so I was a bit lost last week, but we'll go take a look. Thank you. Have a lovely week, and I will see you all next Sunday, if not before. Have a great week.